The discovery. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her palm against the cool metal of the observation deck window, watching the rust-colored surface of Sirian-7 rotate slowly beneath research station Kepler 442. The planet held secrets that had drawn her team of archaeologists across 300 light-years from Earth, but after 6 months of excavation, they had found nothing more than ordinary geological formations and fossilized microorganisms. Elena's reflection stared back at her from the reinforced glass, showing the worry lines that had deepened since the expedition began. At 42, she was the youngest chief archaeologist in the Colonial Research Division, a position she had earned through 15 years of groundbreaking discoveries on dead worlds throughout human space. But Sirian-7 was different. The preliminary surveys had detected massive geometric anomalies buried beneath the planet's surface, structures too regular to be natural formations. The communication panel behind her chimed with an incoming message. Elena turned to see the excited face of Dr. Marcus Chen, her lead excavation specialist, filling the screen. His usually neat black hair was disheveled, and red dust from the planet's surface coated his protective suit. "Elena, you need to get down here immediately," Marcus said, his voice crackling through the atmospheric interference. "We found it. The main structure. It's not just big, it's impossible." Elena felt her pulse quicken. After months of disappointment, Marcus's excitement was infectious. She grabbed her equipment pack and headed for the shuttle bay, her mind racing with possibilities. The journey to Sirian-7's surface took 20 minutes, during which Elena studied the latest geological surveys. The scans showed a structure nearly 2 kilometers in diameter, buried under centuries of sediment and volcanic ash. The excavation site sprawled across a valley between 2 extinct volcanoes. Massive earth-moving equipment had carved away layers of rock and soil, revealing the smooth metallic surface of something that definitely was not natural. Elena stepped out of the shuttle and immediately felt the weight of discovery pressing down on her shoulders. Marcus met her at the edge of the excavation, his face flushed with excitement and exhaustion. Behind him, dozens of researchers and technicians worked to clear debris from what appeared to be an enormous circular platform made of an unknown alloy that reflected the planet's pale sun in strange patterns. "The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases," Marcus explained as they walked toward the center of the structure. "It contains elements that shouldn't exist naturally, and the atomic structure suggests technology far beyond anything we've achieved." Elena knelt beside one of the geometric patterns etched into the platform's surface. The designs were intricate and purposeful, forming complex mathematical sequences that seemed to spiral inward toward the center of the structure. As she traced one of the patterns with her gloved finger, she noticed something that made her breath catch. "Marcus, look at this," she said, pointing to a series of symbols near the pattern's edge. "These aren't random decorations. There's some kind of writing system." Dr. Sarah Kim, the team's linguistics specialist, approached with a portable translation unit. Sarah had spent her career deciphering dead languages from extinct civilizations, but her expression showed the same awe that Elena felt. The symbols were elegant and flowing, completely unlike the harsh geometric patterns of most ancient alien scripts they had encountered. "I've never seen anything like this writing system," Sarah admitted, running her scanner over the symbols. "The structure is incredibly complex, but there's a mathematical foundation that suggests it might be translatable." As the team worked to document the surface inscriptions, Elena noticed something that sent chills down her spine. The symbols weren't just carved into the metal. They seemed to pulse with a faint inner light that became more visible as Sirian-7's sun began to set. The entire platform was somehow still active after what appeared to be thousands of years. Dr. James Wright, the team's technology specialist, confirmed Elena's suspicions when his scanners detected massive energy readings coming from beneath the platform. "There's an entire complex down there," James reported, his voice filled with amazement. "Multiple levels, power sources that are still functioning, and what looks like a vast database storage system." Elena made the decision that would change everything. "We're going in," she announced to her team. "But we proceed carefully. We have no idea what we're dealing with." The entrance to the underground complex was hidden beneath the central spiral pattern. When Sarah's translation unit finally cracked the activation sequence, the platform split open with a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the planet's crust. Lights flickered to life along what appeared to be a gently sloping ramp leading into the depths. Elena led her team into the structure, their helmet lights illuminating walls covered in the same flowing script they had found on the surface. The air inside was surprisingly breathable, filtered and maintained by systems that had operated autonomously for millennia. As they descended, Elena felt the weight of time pressing around them. This place was ancient beyond anything humans had discovered, yet it felt alive. The main chamber opened before them like a cathedral of technology. The walls curved upward into darkness, covered with panels that flickered with soft, ever-changing lights. At the center of the chamber stood a massive cylindrical structure that hummed with barely contained energy. Elena realized they were looking at the most advanced computer system ever discovered. "It's a database," James whispered, his instruments detecting quantum storage systems operating on principles human science barely understood. "The storage capacity is essentially infinite. This thing could contain the accumulated knowledge of entire civilizations." Sarah approached one of the wall panels, her translation unit working frantically to decode the symbols that flowed across its surface like living text. "Elena, I'm getting fragments of the translation," she called out. "Something about records, historical records of, oh my God." Elena rushed to Sarah's side, watching as the translation slowly assembled itself on the portable unit screen. The words that appeared made Elena's blood freeze in her veins. Galactic Survey Archive. Civilization Index 847,293. Status: extinct. Cause: harvesting protocol activation. Date of termination. The list went on and on. Hundreds of thousands of civilizations, all marked as extinct, all terminated by something called the harvesting protocol. Elena's hands shook as she scrolled through the endless catalog of dead worlds and vanished species. Marcus joined them at the panel, his face pale as he read over Elena's shoulder. "This can't be real," he said. "These numbers, if this is accurate, we're looking at evidence of systematic genocide on a galactic scale." Elena's training kicked in, overriding her shock with scientific curiosity. She instructed her team to begin systematic documentation of the database, while she focused on understanding the pattern behind the extinctions. What she discovered was even more terrifying than the raw numbers. Every 50,000 years, like clockwork, spacefaring civilizations throughout the galaxy simply vanished. Not just their ships or their colonies, but every trace of their existence. The pattern had repeated itself for millions of years, creating a galaxy-wide cycle of growth and destruction that had prevented any species from achieving true galactic dominance. The most recent entries in the database showed civilizations Elena recognized from human exploration reports. The Zelani Empire, which had vanished mysteriously 3 centuries before humans achieved faster-than-light travel. The Korthek Federation, whose empty worlds human colonists had settled without ever understanding what had happened to their original inhabitants. And at the very end of the list, Elena found an entry that made her heart stop completely. Species: Homo sapiens. Origin: Sol system, Orion arm. Classification: emerging spacefaring civilization. Projected harvesting date: Galactic Standard 2387. Elena quickly converted the alien date system. According to the database, humanity had less than 18 months before whatever force had destroyed countless civilizations would come for Earth and all human colonies. As Elena stared at the entry that sealed humanity's fate, she noticed something else. Hidden beneath the main database entries was another layer of information, protected by encryption so complex that even the advanced translation systems were struggling to decode it. But fragments were coming through, and what Elena read gave her the first glimmer of hope she had felt since entering the structure. Warning protocol activated. Emergency communication network enabled. Survival instructions available for qualifying civilizations. Elena realized that whoever had built this database had not been content to simply record the galaxy's destruction. They had also created a warning system, a way for younger civilizations to learn about the threat before it was too late. The challenge would be convincing humanity to listen and preparing for a war against an enemy that had never lost. As her team worked frantically to download as much information as possible, Elena activated the emergency communication system. Ancient transmitters came to life throughout the structure, sending coded warnings toward Earth and every human colony. The message was simple but urgent. Danger approaching. Prepare for extinction event. Instructions follow. Elena knew that most people would dismiss the warning as either a hoax or the ravings of scientists who had spent too much time in deep space. But she also knew that some would listen, and those few might be enough to give humanity a chance at survival. The discovery on Sirian 7 had changed everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy, but they had also learned that they were not safe. The greatest challenge in human history was approaching, and Elena Rodriguez had just fired humanity's first warning shot in a war they didn't even know they were fighting. The Warning Network. Elena Rodriguez stood in the communications center of Research Station Kepler 442, watching displays filled with incoming data streams from the ancient database on Sirian 7. 3 days had passed since the discovery, and her team had worked around the clock to decode the survival instructions left by the mysterious civilization that had built the warning system. The data was overwhelming. The builders of the database, who called themselves the Altarians, had been a peaceful species focused on scientific advancement and galactic exploration. They had achieved faster-than-light travel nearly 1,000,000 years ago and had spent centuries cataloging civilizations throughout the galaxy. But their greatest discovery had also been their doom. Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from her translation station, her eyes red from sleepless nights spent decoding Altarian text. "Elena, I've broken through another encryption layer," she announced. "The survival instructions are more detailed than we initially thought. The Altarians didn't just leave us a warning. They left us a blueprint for resistance." Elena moved to Sarah's workstation, where holographic displays showed complex technical schematics and tactical information. The Altarians had learned that the force responsible for the galactic extinctions was not a natural phenomenon or a single alien species. It was a network of ancient machines called harvesters, programmed eons ago by a civilization so old that even their name had been lost to time. "The harvesters are self-replicating," Elena read from the translated text. "They hide in the void between galaxies, monitoring developing civilizations through quantum sensors. When a species reaches a predetermined level of technological advancement, the harvesters activate and systematically eliminate all traces of that civilization." Dr. Marcus Chen, who had been analyzing the technical specifications, looked up with a grim expression. "According to this data, the trigger point is consistent across all recorded extinctions. Species are targeted when they achieve interstellar colonization and begin expanding rapidly across multiple star systems." Elena felt a chill as she realized the implications. Humanity had crossed that threshold decades ago. Human colonies now existed in over 200 star systems, and the expansion rate was accelerating every year. By the harvester's criteria, humanity was already overdue for termination. Dr. James Wright interrupted their discussion with an urgent announcement from his monitoring station. "Elena, we're receiving multiple incoming transmissions from Earth and the outer colonies. The emergency warning we broadcast 3 days ago has reached human space." Elena activated the main communication array, and the central display filled with incoming messages from across human civilization. The reactions were exactly what she had expected. A mixture of skepticism, panic, and demands for more information. Admiral Patricia Stone of Earth Defense Command appeared on the priority channel, her weathered face showing the strain of command decisions that could affect humanity's survival. Dr. Rodriguez, I need to know exactly what you found out there, Admiral Stone said without preamble. Your warning transmission has caused panic in 17 star systems, and colonial governments are demanding explanations we don't have. Elena took a deep breath before responding. She knew that the next few minutes would determine whether humanity had any chance of survival. Admiral, we've discovered evidence of a systematic pattern of extinction that has affected every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy for millions of years. The threat is real. It's coming, and we have less than 18 months to prepare. Admiral Stone's expression remained skeptical. Dr. Rodriguez, I have the utmost respect for your scientific achievements, but what you're describing sounds like science fiction. You're asking me to convince Earth's government to prepare for war against an enemy that may not exist. Before Elena could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the research station. Dr. James Wright's monitoring equipment detected massive energy signatures approaching Sirian 7's position. The readings were unlike anything in human databases, showing propulsion systems that operated on principles human science couldn't explain. Admiral, we may have more immediate proof than either of us wanted, Elena said as emergency lights bathed the communications center in red warning illumination. Something is coming, and it's not human. The main display switched to external cameras, showing space around Sirian 7. At first, there was nothing visible except stars and the distant glow of the system's primary sun. Then reality seemed to ripple, and massive shapes materialized as if stepping out of another dimension. The harvesters had arrived ahead of schedule. Elena counted 12 distinct vessels, each one easily the size of a human battlecruiser, but designed according to principles that hurt to look at directly. The ship's hulls seemed to bend light around them, creating optical illusions that made it difficult to determine their exact size and shape. But their intent was unmistakably hostile. All stations, this is Admiral Stone. The communication system crackled with emergency broadcasts from human space. We're detecting similar energy signatures near 15 human colonies. All defense forces are moving to maximum alert status. Elena realized that the harvesters had not come to investigate the discovery on Sirian 7. They had come to begin the systematic elimination of humanity, starting with the research station that had discovered their secret. The warning broadcast had accelerated their timeline, but it had also given humanity advance notice of the attack. Dr. Marcus Chen was frantically downloading data from the planetary database when the first harvester weapon struck the research station. The blast was unlike anything human military technology could produce, passing through the station's shields as if they didn't exist and causing system failures throughout the facility. We need to evacuate, James announced as secondary explosions rocked the station. Life support is failing on decks 7 through 12, and the main reactor is showing critical instability. Elena made a decision that would define the rest of her life. Instead of fleeing to the evacuation shuttles, she ran toward the station's primary communication array. The Altarian database contained detailed information about harvester weaknesses and tactics that could save human lives throughout the galaxy. If she could broadcast that information before the station was destroyed, humanity might have a fighting chance. Sarah and Marcus followed Elena to the communication center, understanding without words what she was attempting. As harvester weapons continued to tear through the station's hull, Elena activated the ancient emergency broadcast system that the Altarians had built into their warning network. The system was designed to transmit information instantaneously across galactic distances using quantum entanglement communication principles that human science was only beginning to understand. As Elena initiated the broadcast sequence, she felt the weight of an entire species' survival resting on her shoulders. The data package contained everything the Altarians had learned about the harvesters during their final desperate war: technical specifications, tactical weaknesses, and most importantly, the location of the harvesters' primary control facility hidden in a nebula at the galaxy's edge. The Altarians had discovered that the harvesters were not truly independent machines, but were controlled by a central intelligence that could be disrupted. As the broadcast began, Alina's console showed the message reaching human colonies throughout the galaxy. Military commanders, scientists, and colonial governors were receiving detailed battle plans and technical specifications that could mean the difference between extinction and survival. Admiral Stone's voice cut through the emergency broadcasts. "Dr. Rodriguez, we're detecting quantum communication bursts from your position. What are you transmitting?" "Everything we know about the enemy," Alina replied as another harvester weapon blast shook the station. "Battle plans, technical specifications, and the location of their command center. Humanity's survival depends on coordinated resistance across all colonies." Alina's console showed the broadcast reaching Earth just as the research station's main reactor began its final overload sequence. The harvesters had realized what she was doing and were concentrating their fire on the communication array. Sparks flew from damaged equipment as Alina fought to keep the transmission active for a few more seconds. Sarah grabbed Alina's arm, pulling her toward the escape pods as the station began breaking apart around them. "Alina, we got to go now." Alina took one last look at her console, confirming that the complete data package had reached Earth and the major human colonies. The quantum broadcast had been successful, but now came the real test. Would humanity be able to use the information she had transmitted to mount an effective defense against an enemy that had never been defeated? As Alina's escape pod launched from the dying research station, she watched the harvester ships methodically destroying every trace of the facility. But she also saw something that filled her with hope. Human warships were arriving in the system, their weapons charging as they prepared to engage the harvesters in humanity's first battle for survival. The war for humanity's future had begun, and Alina Rodriguez had given her species the most valuable weapon of all: knowledge. The ancient warning network had served its purpose, passing the torch of resistance from one doomed civilization to another. But this time, the outcome might be different. This time, the harvesters faced an enemy that had learned from the mistakes of every civilization that had come before. As Alina's pod raced toward the approaching human fleet, she opened a communication channel to Admiral Stone. "Admiral, the real war is just beginning. The Harvester's command center is located in the Helix Nebula. If we can reach it and shut down their central intelligence, we can stop the cycle of extinction that has plagued the galaxy for millions of years." Admiral Stone's response came through clearly despite the combat interference. "Dr. Rodriguez, you've given us a chance to fight back. Now let's make sure we don't waste it." Alina smiled as human warships engaged the harvesters in the space around Sirian 7. For the first time in millions of years, a targeted species was fighting back with full knowledge of their enemy's capabilities. The outcome was far from certain, but humanity now had something that no previous civilization had possessed: the complete battle experience of every species that had fought the harvesters before. The last transmission from the Altarians had reached its intended recipients. The warning network had served its purpose. Now it was time to discover whether humanity could succeed where countless others had failed, breaking the cycle of extinction and claiming their place among the stars.